I think it's working. Is it working? Let's see. Anyone here? I'm having trouble with my internet. I want to talk to you. Oh, look, it's working for me. I want to say hi because it's been a little while since I've been on a live in this group, since I've done pause. I'm doing pause in my personal page these days. And I thought, let's jump on. I've got half an hour before I go out for lunch. Let's talk about pendulums. Who owns a pendulum? Do you play with it? Do you see yourself as advanced? Tell me all the things. What is it that you think about pendulums? Do they scare you? Are you prolific with it? You use it daily? What is it that you do with your pendulum? I want to know all the stuff. So I'm going to do a little bit of a play and share a bit about pendulums in this group because, spoiler alert, a little tiny secret, not the whole thing. I had a massive shift yesterday, not a massive shift, but this big aha moment about a new course that I'm putting together, and I'll tell you about it in little dribbles because I'm still putting together the pieces, but it's going to be beyond anything that you've ever experienced before. And one of the things is we're going to be using pendulum. So I thought, why not jump on here and share all the ins and outs of using a pendulum. So anyone on here live, would love for you to say hi, just so that I know that yes, I am actually on. Am I on? Because I just had a moment where you couldn't see me because of my internet. So I'm just asking to see if anyone is here and aware and says that it's working. So it's got the little countdown thing on it. So let's just dive straight in. I'm getting laughed at. Yes, I'm there. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm on. So let's have a bit of a deep dive and talk about what pendulums are. And I want to reframe this because pendulums, a lot of people have different ideas or misconceptions around what a pendulum is, right? And so a pendulum doesn't give you the answers. That's one of the first things, right? It doesn't give you answers. What it does, though, is it reveals what your body already knows. So what's available in your nervous system and your subconscious. So they're really good at sharing the deeper understanding within your own body, right? So they're like a feedback tool. They're not going to tell your fortune. They're not going to predict the future or the past or anything like that. The same thing that muscle testing does, lie detectors actually is another good thing. Any sort of neurological diagnostic tool is like a pendulum. So it's a little bit of fun instead of just muscle testing. I used to do muscle testing when I was doing a process called EQT. It was called energetic quantum transformation. And we used to muscle test with my finger. I know other people use muscle testing backwards and forwards with their body. There's another way that you can muscle test with your fingers, right? So pendulums are just another diagnostic tool in a way of, or a feedback tool so that you can understand and sort of confirm the things that your intuition is already sharing with you, if that makes sense. Let me know in the comments if you're on the same page, right? And any questions that you might have as we go along. So again, it's not an occult thing. A lot of people, we've been conditioned to believe that there's something scary about them, that it's an occult thing. In the 19th and 20th century, Like they were actually used by medical practitioners as a diagnostic tool. Um, they used them in medieval Europe as well for dowsing, dowsing rods to find underground water. Ancient Egypt used it as well, and in China they used it for feng shui, right, to locate energetic harmony in the room or the location. So you know they were used uh, by science, engineers, healers, surveyors. Like it wasn't a mystic thing. It was only labeled that later on as an occult thing. So it was a respected tool that was dismissed a little while ago because it's got some accuracy to it, right? So anything that leans us towards intuition can be discredited in some way, because what it does is it gives us our power back, right? But here's the thing, here's some of the things that I want to share with you as I go along, is how to not let it take your own power away, because that's the big kicker. That's the thing that a lot of people misuse this, right? So I will share a little bit more about that as we go along. So how do you choose a pendulum? First of all, I've had this pendulum, I've had this pendulum longer than I've been using pendulums. I use pendulums as a little bit of fun, and sometimes as a way of just confirming something that I'm getting intuitively anyway, right? So choosing a pendulum is something that's personal. Something might just jump out at you if you're in a shop or a market or something like that. Often they're with material that's things like crystal, metal, wood. It's something that is, if you want to look for something that feels balanced, it doesn't swing wildly. Like, one of the things that I love about this one is, even though it's got a heavy end to it, and so when I'm using it, sometimes my hand moves because it is heavy. It's got this little hook on. Let me see if I can show that to you. Can you see that? There's a little hook. That means that I'm able to keep my hand a lot stiller than if I was holding it directly on there, right? So I like that about my pendulum. So if it's got to sort of have a little bit of a weight to it. I know people that use necklaces, and you can put a ring on a string. There's a whole heap of things that you can do, just as long as you've got something that's free flowing and has a little bit of a weight to it, so that you're able to get that sort of swing when you need it to read what your body's doing, right? So truth bomb here, pendulums don't work better if they're rose quartz or because they're a certain thing, right? They just work because they're functioning with your body rhythm and your energetic field. So how do you use it? First of all, it's an individual thing, so you've got to ask that. You can't ask a question it's not going to answer, right? You've got to ask either yes, no, or maybe, or something like it's not available. Is that, show me what unclear is. So I'll give you an example. So my yes is always a circle. So if I'm going to stand here and say, show me a yes, you've got to have patience with it too, right? So show me a yes. So now I'm going to say, show me a no. My no is always backwards and forwards. And something that I haven't done for a long time is show me unclear. So unclear is an anti-clockwise for me, right? It's not whether it works the same way as me, it's whether it's consistent that you, I know people that yes is backwards and forwards for them, right? So you need to have your individual expression with your pendulum to get it to I don't even ask anymore, because I know yes for me is a circle, no for me is backwards and forwards, right? The other part, you might have seen that I actually breathed out, because I'm sitting here with you and I'm sharing how to use a pendulum. So for me to get into the state, I had to get back into my present moment, feel neutral in my body, regulated, and not invested in whether it was going to work or not, the question, the answer, because if you're out of alignment, if you're desperate for the answer, for example, don't pick up a pendulum, because it's not going to work as well, because your mind is influencing your body. Your mind will override the body. And so you've got to have, like I stopped, I took a moment to breathe, and I just tuned in. Often, because I use my pendulum sort of irregularly, I don't use it every single day, but often I will be in the process of regulating myself and asking the question or articulating it, and it will have already picked it up in my body because it's attuned to my frequency, right? So the more you sort of play with the pendulum, the more it sort of becomes, if I'm asking a question that's sort of obvious, like if I was to ask a question, say something like, my name is Elizabeth, or I'm making a statement, right? My pendulum now, because I use it and it's sort of attuned to me, well, because my body's used to it, I suppose, it can be really big. I mean, this is just a normal size. Sometimes if I've got something and my system wants me to know, it can just, like, I'm going to move it now to, it can swing like this big, right, to say, yes, you're on the right track. So the size of the circle, Tim using a pendulum when he first started, the circle, and when I was playing with this with my niece, the circle was really small, right? But the more you get used to it, the more your body, recognizes, or your superconscious starts working with it, the more you can, get a clear, definite answer, and it gets stronger when it's like, yes, 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 this is the right thing, keep going, sort of response. So some of the things I just realized the time. Oh, it's 12:12 here. Common mistakes that beginners make is they ask questions when their nervous system isn't regulated, right? It just won't work. You've got to have some sort of balance, some sort of presence, so that your body can start talking to you instead of your mind. When your mind's trying to work it out, it's not, don't pick your pendulum up, right? It's not a permission slip, it's a clarity tool. So you want to have your body relaxed, breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, and just really just centering yourself before you do ask a question. Another thing is asking the same question over and over again. Not going to get a different answer, and you're outsourcing your intuitive power to a tool, right? To your body as well. And this is where it gets a bit tricky, right? Because you can ask a question and get a yes in, because that's what your body's trying to tell you. So I want to give you an example of this. But then is the questions that what sort of questions are you asking as well? Because if you're not precise with the question, then you can be getting a yes and be going off on a tangent for no reason. So I want to share an example of this. Way back, we were living in a different house. I think it was the first house that Tim and I moved in together. It was the first house we lived in. And I had the opportunity to have a business opportunity to be promoted in a magazine where Tony Robbins was going to be on the cover, right? So it was a big deal. It was over in America, and someone reached out to me that I know and said, this is a great opportunity, and I didn't quite have the money for it. And I was like, everything in my body was saying yes to this, right? And so I asked my pendulum, and my pendulum was like saying yes. I'm like, okay. So that means I need to talk to Tim about it and see if he wants to share some money with me. And it was the first time that I mean, we were relatively new in our relationship, and I had never asked him for something this big before, right? Like to share some money, or I'd never asked him for money, actually. And my pendulum was saying, yes, ask Tim. And it was scary. I didn't particularly want to ask him. It brought up a lot of stuff for me because I'm a very independent, spent 12 years prior to being with Tim by myself, raised my children by myself, so I made all the decisions and all that sort of stuff. So I went through the process and did my own program and released all the stuff that I, needed to, and took action, because action takers get results, right? That's the most important. And I asked Tim the question. And as soon as I asked him, I felt this shift in my body. And I went and got my pendulum and asked again, and it said, no, you don't, so the very act of just asking Tim and getting over that independence and asking him as my partner to support me in this way was the actual reason that the whole process went through. So once I asked him, I felt the shift in my body. I went back to the pendulum. I was like, no, you don't have to do the magazine anymore. It was just like, get over your fear of rejection, abandonment, all of the things, and not being supported by a partner. So the question you ask can be very important as well. So I want you to take note of that process, because you can ask a question and go through a process only to discover that afterwards the question is irrelevant and erroneous anymore, right? as well, right? So another common mistake that beginners make is they use it to outsource their decisions. This is just a bit of fun and a tool, and an ancient tool that we can use to play with. But when we are asking the pendulum instead of internally listening to our own intuition, now we've got a problem, because now we're outsourcing our power again, not to a person, but a thing, right? And for those that, in my spiritual growth, I've actually read the Bible a couple of times, and in the Bible, most people know this, it says in the 10 Commandments, the very first commandment is to love God above all else, right? Love God and only God. What that actually means is when you do something like ask a pendulum instead of listening to your internal higher self support, now you're giving your love and power to something external to yourself. And that's exactly what that was talking about in the commandments is when you give power to something external to yourself, food, somebody else, a pendulum, tarot cards, oracle cards, whatever it might be, now you're outsourcing instead of being internally connected to what it is that your intuition is telling you, and therefore it will not develop your intuition. If we listen to our intuition first, get the answer, maybe get a confirmation or play around with it, as a tool, as a feedback from what you're already getting. It will support you to build up your intuition, right? Asking questions that start with, should I do this or should I do that? That's another, right? You're outsourcing that. And using it to avoid responsibility is another thing that beginners do, right? So, how can you use it in the correct way? As I was saying, asking after you've already made the decision, asking after you've already got a confirmation within yourself. So, maybe, for example, is this yes right now, right? It's just that added extra. It's great for, boundaries and timing. So using it to diagnose more and to pull out some more information from what you're already getting with your intuition, right? Some things that you can ask, for example, is, let me think of some things. Great one. Is this decision aligned with my values? Is a great question, right? You might want to be going out somewhere. Is this environment or is this place supportive of my nervous system? So, or actually already making a decision, and then, as I said, allowing the pendulum to give you that confirmation. So, other things that I wanted to share: don't use a pendulum to diagnose an illness, right? Go and see someone about that. Don't use a pendulum to predict someone else's behavior, or ask invasive questions about others, right? That's again, spiritual integrity is not working on other people without permission. And don't use it to replace your logic, right? Or your intuition. So it's a beautiful tool to use, but there is things that you need to work with first, right? Play with it alongside your nervous system. Like, use it as a teachable tool to support you in your intuition and discernment, right? Like, pendulums are a powerful tool, but you've got to be grounded. So there are things that you need to sort of play with and understand. But get yourself a pendulum if you haven't got one, and play around with it. There's other things that you can do. You can play around with your chakras as well and see. So, for example, I'm using my throat chakra at the moment, so I might say, is my throat chakra balanced? Gee, I hope it comes up as a yes. Is my throat chakra balanced? So yes, I'm getting a yes, right? So you can play around with it in those ways as well. So I hope that added value to you as a magical woman, someone that's curious about using magic on a day-to-day basis, and using it as a tool to work with the things that are creating more intuitive moments for you. So that's me heading out to have lunch with a friend, and I will catch you next time.